You're listening to Healthcare Now Radio. Stand by for This Just In, the latest in healthcare innovation and technology trends with your HIT advisor, Justin Barnes.
Thank you for tuning in and welcome to This Just In. I'm your host, Justin Barnes. In these hour segments, I'll bring you the latest advancements in healthcare, strategy, innovation, and public policy. As always, we're broadcasting from the This Just In studios on the Business Radio X network as well as the Healthcare Now radio network. And before we dive into my special show today, I want to take a moment to let everyone know that we'll be broadcasting the This Just In radio show again live from the HIMSS annual conference in Las Vegas on Wednesday, March 7th from 10 a.m. Pacific to 2 p.m. Pacific. We're broadcasting from booth number 2443. So please stop by if you're going to be in Vegas and see the show, and please say hello to us all. If you're not able to make the conference this year, you'll be able to stream the radio show live at thisjustinradio.com between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. Pacific. That's 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern. We'll have another great slate of CEO, CIO, leading care providers, industry thought leaders, riveting authors, and certainly policymakers joining the show. And to just name a few, here we go. Dr. John Halamka, everyone very well known from Harvard and Beth Israel Deaconess. He's a three-time returning guest. Paul Black, CEO of Allscripts. Dr. Rasu Shretha from UPMC, the CIO there, Chief Innovation Officer. Anish Chopra, President of CareJourney and former U.S. CTO. Neil Gomes, the Chief Digital Officer for Thomas Jefferson University and Jefferson Health. Dan Monroe, author and Forbes contributor. Ed Marks, the CIO, the Chief Information Officer of Cleveland Clinic. And nonetheless, Dr. Karen DeSalvo, formerly the ONC Coordinator and Professor of Medicine and Population Health at UT Austin Dell Medical School. So those are just a few of the guests that we're going to have. I'm very excited. Almost all of them are return guests. So just a great slate. I'm very happy that they're able to join us this year. So please, again, tune in on March 7th to our live broadcast. But for this episode, though, my 119th episode, we're going to speak with a good friend, Jennifer Dennard, who's also known as the Digital Diva at HIStalks. Jen is also the founder of the Health IT Chicks community, which supports women in health IT. Welcome back to the show, Jen.
Thanks, and congrats on 119 episodes. That's great.
Thank you. I know it's actually 3.5 years worth of programming. So, and we're going strong and getting better. So I'm very thankful and grateful.
Sounds like you've got a great lineup for HIMSS. A lot of those folks I've had the pleasure of either meeting or seeing present at past conferences, and it's just a stellar lineup.
Yeah, they're always insightful, and they're just great guests. They're very personable, bring a lot of deep thought in strategy and best practices. So very happy. And this year I was just looking at some of the numbers. I think for HIMSS annual conference is over 40,000 people we're expecting. Is that the number that you hear too?
I haven't checked, but I'm not surprised because when I first started going to HIMSS 6 or 7 years ago, it was hovering around 30,000. So yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, and I heard we actually may bump up closer to 42 to 43. And it might even hit 45. I just think, well over 40,000 will be there. So it's going to be a big time. But you're always a great returning guest. I always look forward to your show. We've been doing this now a couple of times. This is kind of where we look into our crystal ball and see what can we see coming. So, and before we dive in too deep into that, though, which I'm very excited for, tell my audience about HIStalk Practice, and some of those initiatives you have.
Well, HIStalk and HIStalk Practice, I've got to say, they are my dream job. They are a family of healthcare technology news websites run by the elusive Mr. HIStalk. He's an anonymous healthcare executive who has been writing about healthcare technology for 11 plus years now. And the website and his daily coverage of the industry, it's just gained a reputation for really telling it like it is. And we have a very loyal, very large audience of C-suite readers who open up HIStalk every morning with their cup of coffee to see what's going on. And you're doing something right. And Mr. HIStalk, of course, is leading the charge when you're sitting on a panel, as I was last week, speaking to college students, and I'm sitting next to Patty Lavely, who I'm sure is CIO of Gwinnett Medical. And I'm introduced first, she's introduced second, and she turns to me and she says, I read HIStalk every day. It helps me do my job better. And I'm thinking, okay, my job here is done. Thank you, Patty. So it's a lot of fun, and as your listeners and hopefully our readers out there will attest, we typically break stories before other media outlets, and so that always keeps us on our toes too.
Yeah, so you guys always have, your fingers on the pulse. You certainly the beat of the industry and what's happening, and the breaking news does seem to hit across HIStalk first. So tell me, what are some of the big stories that are out there right now? I mean, because there's a lot happening, a lot of obviously convergence on different sectors. But what are you guys seeing, and what are you guys writing about and talking about?
Well, convergence is a great word because a lot of people would also call it consolidation.
Right.
And just aside from, EHR companies merging with each other because the market's getting a little bit smaller, it seems like I can't go a day or two without some headline coming across my desk related to Amazon and how it's going to take over healthcare. And everyone has these heightened hyper expectations for, a consumer-centric company coming in and making healthcare all better. So that's something that we're certainly keeping an eye on with a somewhat jaded eye. I think, as our readers will tell you, and as I'm sure companies that don't have healthcare at their core tend to not survive very long. Amazon, of course, is a different beast, but take whatever news that comes your way about Amazon and its healthcare plans with Berkshire Hathaway and JP Morgan with a small grain of salt for now. So we're definitely keeping our eye on that. Another big issue that it seems like, Justin, we talk about every year when we have our crystal ball conversations is the burden of health IT on physicians.
Yeah.
And, meaningful use is, I don't want to say it's fading away, but it's definitely transitioning, and MIPS and MACRA are supposedly going to be simplified as far as reporting requirements. And CMS seems to be paying a lot of attention to how physicians are reacting to all of these regulatory programs. So we'll see. HIStalk practice, I forgot to mention, deals with the ambulatory side of the industry. So our readers are definitely paying attention to what's going on there. And then, cybersecurity, data breaches, you can't turn over a leaf without coming across a headline related to that. And, you've been, in this space a bit longer than I have. And so I'd love to get your perspective on how you see that evolving. It seems like you can't really stay ahead of the game as far as being proactive. It seems providers just have to figure out how to be reactive in a timely manner.
Well, yeah, and I've done actually. I'm fortunate. I grew up with a gentleman who became one of the leaders globally on cybersecurity, and so I've had him on the show. His name is Steve Wiseman. I've had him on the show a few times, and he helps health systems and practices. He's actually he's a state attorney actually for my family, and he's been kind of part of my family inner circle for 35 years or so. But he just happened to do this on the side. He happened to stumble into this world. He actually taught me kind of the radio business, and he's had a radio show for a very long time as well. And he's been on a couple of times, and so he basically helps with the structures. He's not he doesn't have a company or anything like that where he can build software technology, but he more goes through best practices in whitelisting and really locking down practices in all organizations, not just practices and not just health systems, but all organizations, and kind of flipping the script a little bit on what you have access to and really having that be centralized. And so that's kind of one of the silver bullets that I see being more successful at times is the whitelisting, is where you allow people the 45 sites that they're able to access. And email is managed very strictly. And I think that we're getting down to those type of measures if you really want to have a safe environment or do your very best. I don't think we're ever going to be safe. It's just not the world that we live in, nor have we ever. It's perception. However, there are strategies that you can deploy. And so I think there's things like that The issue, though, is even when you give somebody, quote unquote, one of the silver bullets, that's not the only one. There's numerous great strategies out there, and there's great companies out there, and there's great technologies, innovations out there. But as you know, it goes back to bandwidth. How much these people don't have time to be looking up these solutions. They don't trust. They've been sold everything under the sun. They always, basically snake oil salesmen coming in from time to time, and they just gotten burnt so many times. And they're trying to practice medicine. They're trying to adhere to meaningful use. They're trying to participate within the, the QPP and the MIPS program or any ACO or whatever the program is, initiative, and stay secure and try to go home at night to be a father or a mother and or a great partner. It's just there's just so much coming at them. So I think it's the initiative overload, which is really, tugs at our providers and our health systems. And it's not anyone's fault. It's just kind of the nature of the beast. And so that's kind of where I would start. But there are some great technologies and innovations and strategies out there just on the security side that I feel we can look at. So.
Well, I feel for providers who are having to deal with that. I wrote up a story last week about a hospital in Tennessee who discovered that some hacker had installed cryptocurrency mining software on one of their servers they use for their EHRs. I thought, this is we wouldn't have read about this a year ago. What's going to happen 12 months from now? It'll be interesting to watch.
That's funny. Yeah, and I do agree with you completely on the usability, the integration, enhancing the workflow of all providers. We certainly know if we watched extenders and obviously providers, past physicians, but nurses and other type of care extenders, integrated them into the care plan of the patient, but not creating extra workloads for people, but really integrating that care. I think there's a lot of momentum on that space. It's not about the new shiny widget. It's more about how can you simplify and streamline the provider workflow and the practice or the organization, the hospital workflow. So I do see synergies there. And again, not just about this new disparate widget. I sat with a company yesterday and and there's a lot of these running around, just the great new widget or some workflow best practices, but it sits outside the product. And you just can't do that. You just can't. They're not going to go to a separate area or a separate product and then worry about integration later on. So, those types of things. But we do see some great, some great movement forward. EHRs are getting more usable. There are more integration technologies. We are integrating the care plan. The patient engagement is happening. Patients are becoming more informed. And I'll ask you this question here, but I even had to do some searching on what I want to do for healthcare. I had to change healthcare plans last year, and the ACA and those types of plans were very expensive, and I didn't want to go and just pay $1,000 a month just to have access to healthcare. Then you got to pay this $5,000, $10,000 deductible. So I went and found MediShare, and I'm in love with it. I became a true consumer. I research drug prices before I buy my drugs. I talk to my providers before they prescribe something. But I pay $230 a month for healthcare for my wife and I, and it's fantastic. And I become a true consumer, and I pay $9 for some scripts that I take every month, and it's just phenomenal. And so, and I work out every other day. We eat very healthy. We take care of ourselves. We still have, we still enjoy luxuries of life and indulge from time to time and partake in other things and adult beverages, but we don't abuse ourselves. We work out. We take care of ourselves. We eat healthy, and my life is phenomenal. I've lost 20-something pounds. I pay a fraction of what I paid in healthcare costs before. So I'd love to hear some of your stories on that. Yeah.
Well, we've been MediShare customers for going on 3 years now.
Awesome.
Family of 4, and it's saved us a ton of money. It lines up with our values. It definitely makes us look at where our money is going in terms of, well, does this doctor charge this much because he's that qualified, or does he charge this much because he's not? It's just created a whole new perspective for us in terms of where we go for our healthcare. And I don't know about you and your wife, but we have utilized the free telemedicine visits that they offer us through MD Live.
Same here.
And during the flu season, it's great. And so I know we'll get to this question in a minute, but telemedicine is definitely something I'll be looking for more of at HIMSS. Obviously it's been around for years, but I feel like now that it's getting easier for providers to adopt and easier for them to put into their workflows, because I've seen a ton of EHR companies adding those modules into their systems. It's just becoming, I don't want to say routine yet, but I feel like we're going to see a lot more of it on the show floor this year than we have in the past.
Yeah, actually, I completely agree. And to your point, yes, my wife and I both used the MD Live, zero cost, zero copay, and we both got. I came down with, I think, sinus infection, and she came down with something else. It wasn't the flu, but we both got sick around the same time. But she had something different than I did, and but we both knocked it out, and it didn't cost us but $20 in scripts. So it was awesome. I was very fortunate and very happy again to have MediShare. But to your point on what we will see, so yeah, I actually have a breakfast on March 7th before the radio show. Actually, the live radio show there, we're going to be hosting our third health innovation think tank, and the three topics that we've been covering, and then I'll be doing the report outs. The very first strategy was around value-based care. The second one was connected health, and the third one was virtual care. And there are some great leaps that this industry, we have about 50 thought leaders that we've brought together. This will be our third one, but really making demonstrable changes in the industry and coming up with best practices. And I'll be doing this report out during that think tank that Wednesday morning, talking about what best practices are being achieved in the industry and the key takeaways from all these health IT leaders. And these leaders are from payers, they're from large provider organizations, they're from small provider organizations, independent practices all across the board, and then some great innovators who have those key platforms and technologies that enable those great best practices. So I agree with you completely. I think virtual care and certainly telemedicine is going to be a big topic, and how that's being integrated successfully into the care plan. We're going to see that at HIMSS this year.
Right. Well, one thing I'm looking forward to, and I hope I can find it, is a company called Connection Health. That's connection with an X. Have you heard of them?
I have not.
I just read about them earlier today. They have come up with a touchless, app-based, they call it a health assessment kiosk. So you walk in, you stand there, and sensors and cameras and who knows what else somehow gets all your body's data, and that's all I know right now. But I am definitely intrigued as far as what it can diagnose, how it can help you, what it hooks up to on the back end. But yeah, virtual care, I think is going to be really exciting.
Yeah. And we're doing some big things out there. But real quickly, for everyone that may have joined us a little late, my guest today is Jen Dennard, otherwise known as the Digital Diva from HIStalks. So tell us a little bit about, and I've been around this a little bit, your Health IT Chicks community. I'm not using that word in slang. That's what you call it. Hashtag Health IT Chicks and hashtag Women in HIT. So tell us a little bit about those groups, what you guys are doing at HIMSS to start with.
Sure. Health IT Chicks is a social networking community that I started 4 or 5 years ago. I saw a real need to form a collective voice or a place, socially speaking, for us to gather together and chat. And so we started out with tweet chats. We have a LinkedIn group. There's a website now. We have an annual meetup at HIMSS, and we have 100 plus women come out and engage. We usually have a panel. This year's panel will focus on making your career path your own, because, you're a great example of this, Justin. You start out, you graduate college, or you start your professional career thinking, okay, do I want to go for the corporate C-suite position? Do I want to be an entrepreneur? Do I want to stay home and have a family for a few years? What does that look like? And I would say 15, 20 years ago, there was a definite path that pretty much everybody followed. But now with, flexible schedules and the ability to work remotely, and the cost of living and cost of healthcare causing people to think, you know what, maybe I don't need to do it this way. People now are taking their careers in their own hands and kind of veering off that traditional path. So I've got a great lineup of women, a couple of CIOs, CEOs, entrepreneurs who are going to dispense advice to anyone, male or female, who just has questions about, hey, how do I start my own business? How do I balance work and life better? How do I think about HR if I'm getting my startup off the ground? How did you do it? And so I'm hoping to offer some different perspectives with our meetup. And then, HIMSS has done a great job as a international organization of promoting women in health IT over the last several years. And they are the ones that are really behind that Women in HIT hashtag. And they've got some great events planned. They've got their annual networking event for women in health IT, I believe, is Tuesday evening. Don't quote me on that. HIMSSconference.org is the place to go for all the scheduling. And then my friend Max Stroud, she runs a business, I guess you could call it, or a collective called Doyen Connect for women also working in healthcare IT. And her effort is more events-based, and she's doing a meetup Monday at 3. So, all of this info is out there through the Health IT Chicks hashtag. So I encourage listeners to go check us out. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, Max actually last week published a great list of all the speakers that are and all the sessions that are going to be at HIMSS, and then also their Twitter handles. So she did a great job. I went there and checked. I'm actually speaking on Thursday. Going to be basically doing a value-based care think tank report out with one of my partners in crime, Lee Williams. She's a great leader from University of Virginia. She runs the revenue cycle for University of Virginia Hospital, and she's going to be my co-presenter for our value-based care session. But I love obviously what you're doing and what HIMSS does around women in health IT. I was raised by an incredible mother, an incredible grandmother, very strong, 2 women that are extremely powerful in their own right. And then my wife is an amazing entrepreneur in her own right. So I love what you do. I love what HIMSS does, how you guys support women. And our ecosystem is women-centric. I mean, our healthcare ecosystem is very supportive of women. There's a lot of women entrepreneurs. And they also look out for each other. I put myself in that category. I'm not a woman, but they look out for each other, and it's so cool because I actually follow those hashtags out on Twitter and even in social media, in LinkedIn, and it's just so cool to see what our industry does and what you do. So thank you specifically for what you do, Jen. Love it.
You're welcome.
So moving here, and actually one thing I want to bring up, and also because you also made me think of this when you were talking. Women in health IT, and well, she's not specifically just in health IT. We have a new leader here, even in the Atlanta area, Barunda Prince Jones. She is the executive director of the Comcast The Farm, which is a new incubator just northwest of the city of Atlanta in the Battery at SunTrust Park. This is the new Braves Park. But she has opened in partnership with Comcast this great incubator. I think they have 10 to 13 companies or cohorts coming in. And I think 3 cohorts, 10 companies coming in, and it's going to be neat to see this new, very high-tech, very high-end facility. It's actually kind of cool. One side of this facility overlooks downtown Atlanta, and the other side overlooks SunTrust Park, which is the Braves field and Braves Stadium. You can be there working, watching a Braves game, and also taking in some beautiful skyline. Atlanta is one of the most beautiful skylines if you haven't seen it before. So she's doing a great job, and a lot of female entrepreneurs inside that incubator. So I want to give them a shout out, and I'll connect you over there too, because it'd be great for you to stop by. Certainly as their healthcare cohorts cranked up.
Yeah.
So
I'm looking forward to it.
In our closing couple of minutes, you always do so much great work. We've already talked about kind of the Health IT Chicks and Women in Health IT and how you support those communities inside and outside of HIMSS and the annual conference. But where do you invest? Where else do you invest? And I like to ask the question of my guests, where do you invest your time, talent, and treasure, and why?
That's a great question. Well, my husband and I try to pour into kids at our church. We teach Sunday school, and we just try to really stay connected with my daughters and their peer groups that way. And then kind of on a professional/personal level, I am a big believer in promoting the concept of doing good and giving back in corporate and personal philanthropy. And so I guess 3 years ago, I started a holiday giving campaign through Health IT Chicks, and we've raised money for different kinds of charities. The most recent one we did was Samaritan's Purse, which is a Christian-based global relief organization that has a specific focus. Well, it has many focuses, but a specific one on helping women. So they'll go into communities in impoverished nations and help women learn to read, go to school. Of course, they'll share the gospel with them. They'll help them, prepare to enter whatever workforce is available to them. And so, it's important for us to kind of get out of our shells and realize that giving back, doing good, just really makes it all worthwhile. And so that's kind of what drives me when I get up in the morning. How can I help somebody else? How can I help somebody to help somebody else? It's all one of the, I like to tell people that Health IT Chicks has a number of pillars that we kind of stand on. And one of those is helping those who are a little less experienced than us, become leaders. And I think giving back is part of that leadership process.
Totally agree. And we're actually at time, Jen, but you and I always have so much to talk about, and time does fly. You're a terrific guest. I look forward to seeing you
Thanks.
at HIMSS. And thank you again for joining my show numerous times. You're wonderful for that. So thanks again.
Thanks for having me.
You got it. And thanks everyone for joining us. And please tune in weekdays at 2:30 p.m. Eastern, 11:30 a.m. Pacific to always hear the latest shows. You can always track me at Twitter at HIT Advisor. You can use the hashtag #ThisJustinRadio so we can respond to your comments from the show. If you missed any part of this episode or want to hear more, all of my shows are posted on Apple iTunes, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, Google Play, and TuneIn. And also you can check out the new website that we launched at justinbarnes.com. Thanks, everyone. Have a terrific week.